Now, our next speaker started his first business at the age of just 12 and has worked with hundreds of businesses in the UK and around the world, helping them to get better results from their marketing. He's here to show you how to build your credibility, create powerful marketing, and win more business. Please welcome Nathan Littleton.
I have a question for you. Would you like your marketing to be credible or incredible? What if I could show you a way that it can be both? Out of interest, who remembers their first sales meeting? A few of you. I remember mine really, really clearly. It was February 2003. And as Jem said, I was 12 years old. See, my hobby at the time, the thing I liked doing most, was making websites. But the websites that I made were aimed at 12-year-olds. They had games, jokes, funny stories, pretty much anything that a 12-year-old would like. And I was doing this for a few months, and it didn't take me long to realise that people were doing exactly the same things I was doing, but for business. Not only that, many of them were earning a very decent living from it. I thought, well, I could do that. Thanks to my chief investor, my mum. She managed to acquire the startup capital that would be needed for a more than capable second-hand computer and a perfectly capable broadband internet connection. I was made. For a few months before that, we'd been attending at the local working men's club what was quite optimistically called a talent show. Needless to say, there wasn't very much talent actually on show, but we went there nevertheless every Saturday evening because, hey, it's better than doing nothing sitting at home. And there was one evening that we were there at this talent show that I thought, hey, well, maybe I could build a website for this place. So I went to reception and I got the name of the manager. His name was Richard. And when I got back, I spoke to my marketing director, also my mum, and she said, hey, why don't you give them a call? That's exactly what I did. I got their number out of the yellow pages, and I gave them a call. I managed to get this meeting. And it was all set. A week later, I was going to go to this working men's club, and I was going to sell them a website. That's what I was going to do. So my chauffeur at the time, you guessed it, my mum, dropped me off outside this really tired-looking working men's club. And yes, I'll be honest, at 12 years old, walking into my first sales meeting, I was nervous. Really nervous. No more nervous than when I entered the front door and look at reception and there's this big, angry-looking, bald guy wearing only a name tag. Not only a name tag, wearing a shirt and a name tag. I should make that clear. His name was Dave. And he looked me up and down as I stood there at the reception desk and he said, can I help you? And I said, yes. I'm Nathan. I'm a salesman. I'm here to see Richard and I've come to sell him a website. You know when you see these people and you can see the corners of their mouth twitch as they're trying to hold back the laughter? Yeah, that's what I could see in Dave. He looked me up and down and he kind of sniggered to himself and then he leant back on his chair, leant back through to the other office and shouted, Richard, there's a child here to see you who calls himself a salesman. Now he didn't know this, I was a salesman, I just hadn't made any sales yet. But this was going to be the first. And I'm sure I could hear a distant laughter in the background from Richard as well. But Dave took me through to the office and I sat there opposite Richard, ready to have this sales meeting. I didn't really know what I was going to say, but truth be told, even at 12, I was pretty good at thinking on my feet. Just a couple of months before, I'd got in trouble by my mum for thinking on my feet. We used to go and visit my nan every couple of weeks or so, and we'd drive there. There was one time we went there and my nan said, hey, would you like some ice cream? I'm 12 years old, of course I want some ice cream. That was great. But the problem was, next time we went, I walked in and I said, hello, Nan, can I have some ice cream, please? My mum said, that's really rude. You can't just go in and ask for ice cream. But I didn't learn the lesson. The next time I went there, that was exactly what I did again. I said, hello, Nan, can I have some ice cream? She said, Nathan, you can't go in there and ask for ice cream. It's really, really rude. Third time lucky, hey? So the next time we were there, the next time we were on the way to my nan's, my mum said in the car, look, I know what happened the last 2 times we went to your nan's. You can't do this again. You can't go in there and just ask for ice cream. If she wants to give you some ice cream, she can, but you can't go in there and ask for it. So we went into my nan's house, and the first thing I said was, hello, Nan, I'm not allowed to ask for ice cream, but if you want to give me some, you can. So I was pretty good at thinking on my feet. And when I was in this meeting with Richard, ready to sell him this website, I think I did a pretty professional job of building my credibility in who I was and what I could do for them. So I said to Richard, As you may or may not know, my parents and I, we've been attending your fantastic talent show. It is really good. And in that time, over the last few weeks that we've been attending, I've noticed that as your clientele become a little more relaxed and boisterous, drunk to you and I, they're more than willing to answer my carefully crafted market research questions. Richard, I've asked them, how did you hear about the club? Why do you keep coming back? And more importantly, do you tell your friends? You'll be really pleased to know they are telling their friends about the club. But as you'll see from my proposal, the opportunity that you're missing is that by not having a website, there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of people in this local area who don't yet know how great this club is. For the small sum of just £250, I'm confident that with the right website, we can put this club on the map and make it a real focal point of the local community. How does that sound? Richard seemed impressed. There were 10 minutes after that of some questions asking the specifics of what we might be able to do, even a little bit of negotiation. But hey, the result of that meeting was I got the sale. I got that first website. I was absolutely overjoyed. I went back home to my sales director, you guessed it, and she said, so what are you going to do now? I said, do you know what? This year, I'm going to sell 100 websites. February 2004, fast forward a year, and I sold one website. The harsh reality I faced was I'd fluked it. I did a professional job for Richard, and I have a huge amount of respect for him for giving me that first opportunity. But the reality was, it was much harder for other businesses to see what a 12-year-old could do for them, however professional I thought I looked. But it wasn't the same for all businesses. For many businesses, all you really needed to build your credibility was to put an advert in a brightly coloured book. And then a few years later, all you really needed to do to have credibility was to have a professional-looking website. And a few years after that, all you really needed was to be on social media and be visible, be professional. But in 2019, things have changed. In an age of fake news, fake media, and fake advertising, I think this statistic is pretty damning. That lack of trust is costing businesses around the world $2.5 trillion each and every year. Now, I don't know about you, when I see a number like this, I don't really know what it means. Let me put it into some context for you. That's the GDP of our entire country, simply lost as a result of lack of trust in the marketplace right now. 70% of people, it's reported, are skeptical of advertising. And what this means is that the adverts and the marketing materials that you put out there, people don't believe them in the same way that they used to. And this creates a big problem. But conversely, Nielsen reported that people are 4 times more likely to buy as a result of a referral. So what I take that to mean is that people are far more likely to believe what someone else says about me than they are what I say about myself. And that will be the same for you too. Now, I'm always interested in the dictionary definitions of words, and I found this quite interesting. So the dictionary definition for credible is able to be believed, convincing, or capable of persuading people that something will happen or be successful. Now, these would be descriptions that you would place on any professional salesperson and any honest marketer. But I would put it to you that you could also use this description to describe a sleazy salesperson, or a dishonest marketer, or someone who overpromises and perhaps underdelivers. Because all this really means in terms of credibility is whether you're able to convince someone that something will happen. But I think we can take this from a slightly different angle. I watched a TV program a few years ago where Penn and Teller, the magicians in the US and TV personalities, they took over a fancy restaurant. Everything looked really, really good, but there was one thing different about this restaurant, and it was all about the water, the bottled water. See, what they had was a fancy water menu, just in the same way as you might have a nice wine list. Instead of a wine sommelier, they had a water sommelier who came round and explained all the wonderful properties of these bottled waters that they had in this menu. One was called the Mount Fuji, and the sommelier described all these wonderful things about how it's a natural antitoxin and a diuretic. There was another one that was called the Amazon, and it had a single spotted arachnid in the bottom of the bottle. But the sommelier described these in such wonderful detail. There was a third one on there that would really catch your eye. That was called L'eau du robinet. And it was described as, in this really fancy looking menu, it was described as pure, brisk, and unmistakably French. This running water is bottled at source to retain all the natural vitamins and minerals where they're at their most potent. It's brash and aggressive in flavour, which makes it the perfect complement for meat and poultry. Doesn't it sound incredible? $7.50 a bottle. And that was one of the cheapest. These bottles were all really highly priced. And it was interesting to see the responses from the people who were trying these waters. Many of them were describing the different flavours they could taste. Now, I don't speak French. Does anyone speak French in the room? Anyone know what l'eau de robinet might mean? Exactly right, tap water. Not only was l'eau de robinet tap water, they were all tap water. Every single one of those bottles was filled in the same car park with the same hose. And yet, the experience that they had that was built around this water with the nice menus, with the guy talking through all of their properties and their wonderful flavours and how they complement the food, and even the inflated prices, actually managed to change their senses to the degree that they were tasting different things. They were even smelling different things. This one's really soft. It's not as hard as the other. The experience that was created around that, the core product, actually managed to change their senses. And that's what I want to share with you today, how the experience that you give your customers can form a really powerful part of your marketing. That's how you build credibility in what you do, is by creating an experience that people feel compelled to share. So that begs the question, what makes people share things? And I don't just mean on social media, of course that plays a part. I don't just mean what you put as a picture on Instagram or as a post on Facebook or where you check in, but what are the things you even share around the dinner table? When you're having a really bubbling conversation and something clicks in your mind where you think, hey, I've got a story that could be relevant here. I've got a story that could be interesting. What is it that makes you think of an interaction that you've had with a business? Shout out some examples. What are the things that you share on social media and in conversations? What kinds of things? Funny things, absolutely. Lots of people share things that are funny. It's the main reason I'm on Instagram, in truth. Anything else? What else do we share? Animals, yeah. I mean, the other reason I'm on Instagram, in truth, is for dog and cat videos. Who isn't? Because they're heartwarming and they're emotional. That's another thing that we have a tendency to share. One more, maybe? Awareness. Sorry? Awareness, yeah. So things that might be informative, absolutely. So here is a list that I came up with of some of the things that I think get shared on social media. We do share things that are extraordinary, extraordinarily positive or extraordinarily negative, things that aren't in the day-to-day. We share those because we think they might be interesting to people, of course. And that can encompass some of the other categories as well, things that are risky, things that make us angry. I mean, I don't think a day goes by, or at least a week goes by, that I don't see someone being angry on social media about politics or about a parking fine they've received or something like that. We share things that make us angry because we think they'll make other people angry too. We share things that are real time. Many of you have taken pictures here because you've captured a particular moment that you feel might be lost. Many of those pictures will end up on social media. Maybe even some of the stories that the speakers have shared today, you'll tell again as anecdotes with your colleagues, your friends, or your family. And a few others, we do share things that are heartwarming and emotional, and we share things that are easy to share. And we share things that are easy to share when businesses make them easy to share. But let me be clear here about what creating a shareable experience is. This isn't a business asking a person to share and making it easy for them to do so. This is creating an experience that someone feels compelled to share. And if you can give them the platform to be able to do that, and tag your business in on social media, or make sure they're aware of your business name, then that marketing will carry much further than what you say yourself. So there are some examples. Of course, another there is things that make them look good. I mean, I do it all the time. I share things on Facebook that make me look good because I think, hey, it's something that I want to share in. Maybe it's an opportunity for someone else, but really, I'm just a bit of an ego at heart. I'm okay with that. So there are a few of the things that people share. And I'd like to do a bit of an experiment with you. Who has a smartphone in their pocket or on their table right now? Keep your hand up if you have the Instagram app on your phone. Okay, so quite a few of you. Good. Take your phone out for me and open up the Instagram app. And here's what I'd like you to do. On Instagram, you have a search box. Go to the search tab at the bottom. And in the search field, I'd like you to type in the name of your favorite bar or restaurant. Now, with a bit of luck, you should see something similar to what you can see on the screen here. So I've done a search here for Temper in London. It's my absolute favourite restaurant. And there are 3 listings there you can see at the top that are relevant to Temper. The first one is their own Instagram account. That's not the one we're interested in for the purposes of this. The things that they post on their own social media are things that they are telling their customers. I don't think they'll be as believable as the things that appear in the next 2 sections. But what you'll see is the next 2 are often a hashtag, if it's a big enough restaurant or bar. But the third is really important. This is where people have posted things on Instagram and they have tagged in the location that you're looking for. This is really important because this is what people are saying about that particular bar or restaurant. These are the experiences that they're capturing in photos or videos to do with that place. Now, I use bars and restaurants as an example because they're particularly good at this. Many of them are. If you don't find these listings, maybe try a different bar or restaurant, one that is perhaps active on social media or big enough to have the kind of presence where people are tagging them in. But what you can see in there can be quite alarming, really, as to how interesting people are making their experiences for their customers that is making them feel compelled to share. This is the truest sense that you can possibly get of people sharing off their own back. So this is an experiment to run at home too, on yourself, to see what people are tagging in with your particular location, if people can check in there, with your competitors, and with some of your favourite places too, the people that are best at this. Bars and restaurants are always good. So what are the things that people share? You mentioned humour. Now, I'm always taking photos of these signs that appear outside cafes and pubs and restaurants because they're funny. And I think that people on my social media might find them funny too. I feel like audiences like this might even take a little bit of a giggle from a sign like this. Sometimes it's as simple as personalisation, like with this campaign that was particularly successful, where there were bottles of Coke around the world that had people's name on them. Just by show of hands, who managed to pick up a bottle of Coke that had their own name on it? Yeah, a few of you. Perhaps you're some of the 998 million impressions that these bottles of Coke managed to get on Twitter alone. That's how successful this campaign was, simply around personalisation. That was the beauty of it. Personalisation is what made this possible. So what can you do in your businesses? Who send sales proposals? So with your sales proposals, rather than having your name and logo on them, how about having your prospect or your client's name or logo on them instead? Maybe that's an experience that can make them feel special. Maybe it's as simple as, after your sales meetings, to send a real simple handwritten thank you card instead of an email that's just automated and a canned response. So it would be remiss of me not to personalise my own slides for you today, and I hope you'll share a Coca-Cola with me too. Now, this is something that I found where personalisation was done really, really well without any cost, or with very little cost at least. I'd had a meal at a restaurant in Clent, near where I live, with a friend of mine called Chris, and when we sat down at the table, this is what we saw. These were our menus. They weren't particularly flashy, they weren't printed on high-quality card. What they were was just simple menus that were printed out on a laser printer, but they were personalised completely to us and our reservation. They had our name and the date and time that we were sitting. Really, really simple. So simple that any of you could implement that within your businesses right now. But the funny thing here was, I noticed that after we'd sat down, he pulled out his phone, and within 30 seconds he'd taken a photo and he'd put it on social media. Now, the restaurant there didn't ask him to share that, and I certainly didn't say, hey, I'm going to be speaking to 130 people in Broxbourne in a couple of years, would you mind sharing that? He felt compelled to share it. And that's the magical moment that we're trying to create here, this compelling feeling to share. I had my own experience from the world of music, which was I went to the concert of Ed Sheeran here, but it wasn't at Wembley Arena or the O2. It was in a dingy room above an even dingier pub in a quite terrible suburb of Birmingham. And what was interesting about this was the room held about 100. It was half, maybe even a quarter of the size of this. Loads of his fans there before he'd really hit the big time and become something of a superstar. We were all packed in like sardines into this really small room. And when he came out on stage, he said, I'm sorry. I came out to do sound check, but unfortunately, my amp isn't working. I'm not going to be able to give you the concert that I wanted to. Not wanting to disappoint his fans, rather than just cancelling and rebooking the gig, what he decided to do was put a table in the middle of the room, stand on that, and do the entire gig from there without the need for an amp at all. What we got there was a really unique experience with someone who would go on to be a megastar. The number of pictures that I saw on social media from my friends after that event was incredible. The number of times I've shared this story with audiences around the world and with friends and family too tells me that that was a shareable experience. Another from the world of music was Becky Hill. Becky Hill had a concert planned in Manchester, and unfortunately the water main burst, which meant that the whole venue was flooded. She couldn't do it. They posted on Twitter, said the gig will be rebooked. Terribly sorry, but we'll arrange a new date. Not wanting to disappoint her fans, she sang on the balcony outside the venue anyway, with a flock of fans who were outside desperate to see it. Again, a unique and shareable experience that people were dying to share. And that tells you that things don't always go right. Yes, you can put processes in place that help you and your team to be able to create shareable experiences. But to be honest, things don't go right. And actually how we behave when we need to be spontaneous and how we deal with the things that go wrong, they can be the real measure of a shareable experience and turning something negative into something positive. U2, they had something where they tried to create shareable experiences. They tried to create real positive influence with their fan base. They thought, hey, wouldn't it be a great idea if we could get our album out to as many people as we possibly could? Why don't we just give it to them all for free? Well, how can we get that free album to as many people as possible? Well, why don't we partner with one of the biggest smartphone manufacturers in the world? We'll get them to just put it on everyone's phones. Sounds great, right? No, not so much. The backlash was enormous because people considered the space on their phone, at that time phones were quite small, to be really, really precious. And for that to be invaded by an album that they probably didn't even want wasn't much good. Wasn't much good at all. So that response wasn't particularly good. Now I had a situation a few years ago, after I'd run my business for a few years, I decided it was time for me to get an office and start recruiting some team. So that's exactly what I did. I shortlisted some offices from online that I thought might fit the bill. And I had a few phone calls and I had a meeting arranged with Sheeran at an office on the Hagley Road in Birmingham. I was pretty excited. It was going to be a big expense, getting new team and things like that, but I was ready to take that decision. And when I turned up for the sales meeting, I pulled my car into the car park and this is what I could see across the way. I could see a lovely sign that said it was reserved just for me. I got in my car, I walked to the front door, and who's there to greet me but Sheeran? She's holding the door open. She says, hey, it's Nathan, isn't it? We go through to her office. I can see on the desk just as we walk in, I can see a lovely welcome pack. It's got my name on it. It's got my company logo. She's even taken my picture from my LinkedIn profile and popped that on the front as well. We talked through the details. She said, hey, I'm sure you want to go and see the office that we've got lined up for you. I said, that'd be great. We go through to the office. It is stunning. Lovely bright walls. There's even art on the walls too. Really high quality furniture and a couple of Apple Macs on the desks for me and the new team member as well. I'm thinking, this is perfect. She said, hey, I bet you're thirsty, aren't you? I said, yeah. She said, why don't we go and get a coffee and we'll talk through all the details. That's exactly what we did. We went to the kitchen. There's a beautiful coffee machine in an amazing kitchen. The coffee was incredible. I was absolutely sold. We went into the office. We signed the deal there and then. I'm thinking, this is going to be great. 2 weeks later, can you guess what might have happened? I go into the car park, pull my car in, and I'm looking for that sign. Where's that sign with my reserved parking space? No sign, no reserved parking space, but I mean, that's fine, isn't it? I mean, I can't expect to get that every time. In fact, no reserved parking space, there was no parking space at all. I'll park on the road, that's fine. Go into the front entrance. She's not there to greet me, but again, I can't expect that every time, can I? Go into the office. I'm remembering what these brightly coloured walls were like and all the high quality furniture on the Apple Macs. Nothing. Not the experience I felt like I'd been sold, but I mean, at least the coffee's good, right? So I walked through to the kitchen again, and I go and get one of these amazing coffees that I remembered from the sales meeting. The coffee is just as good as it was before. And I'm walking out, I'm about to take the coffee through to my now empty office, and I can hear it behind me. I say, you have to pay for that. Oh. The whole experience felt terrible. And I'll be completely honest, no one said all those things would be a reserved parking space every time, that the coffee was free and amazing, that the office would look as it did. But the problem was I expected that that's what it would be. And I didn't get what I felt like I'd been sold. And actually, it's their perception of what you're selling that has to line up with what you actually deliver. I call it serve what you sell. The experience that you create as part of marketing has to be delivered as part of the product or service. Now, here's what I'd like you to do. On your tables, you should have an A5 piece of brightly coloured paper. Could you each take one of these pieces of paper for me? Now, if everybody has a piece of paper, what I'd like you to do, and you may have not done this since you were a kid, perhaps you do it all the time. I'd like you to make, to the best of your ability, a paper aeroplane. Now, when I was 12 years old, when I wasn't making websites, one of the things I used to make all the time was paper aeroplanes. And I always found it interesting that the success of a paper aeroplane was never judged on whether it actually hit a destination, whether it hit a target, but it was judged on whether it looked good and whether it flew through the air well when you threw it. And I always found that kind of strange. How are we getting on with these? Good. I'm seeing some interesting designs here. 30 seconds more then, and we should all have a paper aeroplane. If you can't make a paper aeroplane, just create something that you think will fly well. Okay, 10 more seconds. Fantastic. Okay, you should all have a paper aeroplane. Here's what I'd like you to do. Please get to your feet, if you are able to do so. The competitive nature in some of these. Here's what I'd like you to do. On the count of 3, I would like you to imagine that your paper aeroplane is your next marketing campaign. And suspend your disbelief for a second and imagine that I am your target customer. And do whatever you can to get your paper aeroplane to reach me at the front of this stage. Are we ready? Yeah. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please take your seats. Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting that we were all given exactly the same instruction? We were all given exactly the same resources to create a paper aeroplane and for it to reach me at the front of this stage. Everybody dealt with it in a different way. There were simple designs, complicated designs, lots of different ones. Someone even came and handed it to me. I delivered this at a university a few years ago. Someone said, I don't know how to make a paper aeroplane, so I've given it to my friend. She's going to make it, which I think is a beautiful analogy for outsourcing your marketing. We all dealt with it in completely different ways. But here's the thing. Just like with paper airplanes when I was a kid, it was really easy to focus on whether it flew through the air well without ever really mattering whether it reached its destination. With your next marketing campaign, I want you to focus not on whether it's fully on brand and whether there's typos. Maybe send it to your mum or your dad or your partner and see if they like it. But really, to make sure that it's a message that resonates with your audience and is powerful. I mentioned at the start the dictionary definition of credible. Actually, I'd prefer the dictionary definition of incredible for your marketing. And for the experience that you create to be genuinely compelling for people to share, it needs to be so extraordinary as to seem impossible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nathan. There's some wine. I hope you enjoy that. I know you're a bit fussy about your coffee. Hopefully that'll be all right for you. Nathan Littleton, fantastic. I'll tidy up then, shall I? Let's get rid of all these planes.